Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you on behalf of Container to the second day of the Realities in Transition XR Camp, Extended Worlds. Welcome here at the Museum of Contemporary Art, but also welcome to our online guests, because we are live streaming to Facebook and YouTube. So enjoy the program today. We have very interesting lectures, talks. Realities in Transition is an EU project, so I want to extend my thank you to all of our project partners, especially the lead partner KONTEJNER I, but also V2, Imal, Ars Electronica, and Dark Euphoria and Lab Festival. They all contributed to this program, so enjoy all the talks, enjoy all the lectures. Welcome. And I want to give the floor now to our lead partners, Ilaria and Aurélie, to present to you what the project Realities in Transition is about.
Thank you. Hello. Okay, so hello. Thank you, Teresa, for the introduction. Thank you, everyone, again, for being here with us today. My name is Ilaria, and I work for KONTEJNER I. So it's a festival in Marseille, in the south of France. So today we would like to present with my colleague Aurélie, which is sitting right at the front, what is Realities in Transition, because you actually may be wondering what Realities in Transition is. So RIT, as we like to call it, is a community. Gathering artists, professionals, and experts in XR. Our aim is to explore and support alternative XR production and experiment in new narratives. What do I mean by that? So basically, XR technologies have become a part of our physical life, of our daily physical life, and mostly it's because there are big companies who like to use those kind of technologies for marketing purposes. The RIT community wants to be an alternative to that by developing a creative and activist community that proposes inclusive, sustainable, and qualitative XR artistic creation. So as we said, the European XR community welcomes emerging artists, but also mentors that want to reflect on how to promote an open XR. Of course, I am not alone working for the RIT project. We have actually gathered a consortium composed by 7 major artistic organizations in Europe that we all work with XR, and we are all here in the room. So I don't know if you can raise your hand because everything is black, but we have Lucia for Imal, somewhere, Vanessa for Ars Electronica, Teresa and Anna for Container, we have Marie for Dark Euphoria, Sita and Boris for V2, and Nacho for Lev, me, my colleague Colleen, and Aurélie for KONTEJNER I. So if you want to know more about the project or just come say hello, you'll find us here. The last point, and then I will lead the floor to my colleague, to Aurélie. What are we driven by? So first, we want to establish XR as a sustainable, inclusive tool for the common good. So as I said, we do not want only to reflect, but we also want to produce tangible tools and share them with the whole creative community in Europe. We want to support alternative XR creation to explore new narratives. In that, we believe that emerging artists have a key role for exploring new narratives, and we also believe and foster peer learning methodologies, which we implement especially during the artistic residencies that we organize throughout the project. And last, we want to consolidate the existing XR creative community by creating, for example, opportunities for networking, the XR camp being one of them, and by gathering an heterogeneous community to enhance critical thinking.
Hello, so I'm Aurélie. I also work for KONTEJNER I, coordinating the project. I wanted to give you a bit of insight of what we do concretely through the project. So first we organize XR labs and workshops. So basically is targeting local students and young creators, but also ourselves to capacitate us as festivals and cultural organizations to engage this community and to share about open source tools, techniques, hacking, reusing, also, giving a first step to all the ones that interested with XR. Then we organize also residencies. So we have, through the project, 3 international calls. So we already had 7 projects with 9 artists during last spring at V2. We will launch a second open call actually next week with a residency at IMAL. And then we will have another cohort of 7 residencies next summer at V2. And we are super happy also to have some of the artists of the residencies that you can see in the exhibition, and also that will take part of the discussions and panels. So these are 2-month residencies. And of course, it's important to us to showcase all the work produced during the residencies. Then we organize European XR camps. So this one in Zagreb is the first one. We will have another online in June, and then we will have a third one during the opening of the Biennale in Chronique in Marseille. And it's really a way to gather all our communities. So we all have, separately, of course, each partner has its own network at European level, regional, national. The idea is that we gather everyone, we mingle, we know each other, we exchange, and we also organize what we are doing these 3 days. And we also want, and this is super important for us, and I think one of the added values of this project is to share resources about XR, about open source, about good practices. So we will have, in our website, we are building now a section of resources that artists, but also practitioners or trainers, facilitators can use to be inspired, to learn more about what the others are doing. And we will have also some interviews, and we will start a series of talks with experts on topics that interest us about inclusiveness, sustainable XR, immersive experiences. And so this will be recorded and put in the website. The last big activity I would say that we do is we power a European XR manifesto. So it's basically an app that everyone can go in, and you can put your statements about what is important for you to build sustainable practices in XR, what are your thoughts on the future, what XR should be. So out of the mainstream, let's say, alternative XR, and so you build, we all contribute to this app, to this manifesto, and the idea is that then we will gather to create the manifesto of realities in transition, and it will serve to advocate also at European level on the XR that we want in the future. So yes, be part of the movement. I hope you find it interesting, and if you have some questions, we are here. Thank you.
Everybody, we will start the program with a lecture by Sander Veenhoff, When is AR going to become our default reality? So I'll invite Sander to the floor and leave the mic. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry for mentioning AR there. I'm a bit old-fashioned. It should, of course, be XR, but I started doing AR in 2009, and it's there. I titled this presentation, "When is AR going to be our default reality?" Because that's what I'm interested about. And actually it happened to me for a while during the COVID times. I was making all these face filters, and I joined Zoom meetings with interactive filters, like this one, which is made in Snap technology, and you can add it to Teams or Zoom. But for mostly what interests me is what will happen to me, or what can I do when AR is our default reality? What if we live in a AR reality day by day? So for me, back in 2009, it was quite clear what you can do with AR. Well, you can just place objects around the world wherever you want. And one thing I had in mind was to have an exhibition in the MoMA. I just graduated at the Rietveld Art Academy. So I invited some fellow artists, and we had this exhibition in the MoMA. We didn't tell the museum about it. And from that moment on, I really loved the power to be able to just change the whole world by programming and making things. And the reason why that was suddenly possible was this AR app that was launched in the Netherlands in 2009, the Layer app. Before that, AR was lab technology. It took a lot of effort to make something appear like this. You see a floating cube, but nowadays you could just, or back then, you could tell people, grab your phone and there's something there. Of course, we had the Pokemon hype, which is, for a lot of people, like this key moment, and everybody understood, okay, AR can really do something. And after that, there was not any Pokemon anymore, so everybody was thinking, oh, what to do with it? And nowadays, if you look at people like in these situations, they're not using AR, they're on their phone, and I still think it's a waste of possibilities. I mean, there could be so much more, and sometimes I make use of that, the fact that they're staring at their phone. I have this another lens filter. It's not really having a purpose so much, it's just you walk through a crowd of people, and there's this floating cube that goes from one to the other. But yeah, when I show that, you can of course ask, okay, what's the purpose? And that is the thing with AR. People always want purpose. You know, they think, okay, can I use it? And yes, you can do navigation in AR. That's very useful. And fortunately, there's also a lot of art. This is actually in Zagreb. I found it online, and I thought I should include it, because nowadays our cities are starting to look like this. If you look at Twitter, on YouTube, and things like that, wherever you go, you can find these nice ornaments throughout the city. Recently, the tracking of a city has even improved a lot. The geospatial possibilities by Google are great, so you can play Space Invaders.
Get ready.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Outrun, so I did some mixed reality gaming around the corner, as you saw. What I'm noticing in AR is that actually when you start using it in public space, it's not only about the objects you see, there's also other people in public space, and they start playing a role, or at least they are entering your scene, they're in your image, and what to do with that. That's one of the things that I'm questioning right now, and it's also a shift. It's bringing new problems, like who's in the picture, and it's different than a virtual object that has no will, that does nothing. So I'm not a great 3D modeler, and then I thought of this theater piece, and I thought, okay, that's what I can make. And what if those people in front of me waiting for a tram could be performers in the Triadisches ballet? And it's an example of where you create an AR filter that only comes to life when there are people that are carrying your creations. Another example, I was testing physics, and I went to the central station because there's always a lot of beta testers right there. And they have no idea that I'm testing anything. They're just like me, holding up their phone, and they're taking photos. I'm pointing at them, and they're testing the physics of my installation. Just a brief test. And there's something else I want to show that. There's actually something weird with a lot of the AR you see, that I'm the creator of this, so I know what I should do. I know how to perform. But for most of us, that's not the case. When I point my phone at you, you have no clue what's happening. So that you're standing on a ball and that you have to hold your hands like this, yeah, that's not happening. So there's actually there's a few problems we have to fix. For example, maybe adding sounds that you know, oh, I raise my arm, probably there's something working. What you actually need is a magic mirror. So you stand in front of a big screen and then you see yourself. But we don't want big screens all over the place all the time. So that's also not a solution. Yeah, I'm making these little bridges. And that was the bridge to this one. Yeah, so no magic mirrors, but a sort of a do-it-yourself approach with the magic mirror, something that works. So instead of seeing yourself without the magic mirror, that's how you should look at this one. And there's a lot of effort being put in creating realistic digital fashion. But if you do it this way, you don't even have to recreate the fashion, and you have this experience on you. Yeah. So with all these things, yeah, it's a prototype. So there has not been a fashion brand calling me up saying, "Hey, we want this." But anyway, it's nice to show it to you now. That's why I create my stuff. So more fun in public space. This is the first version of something that I now turned into a game. This is again happening somewhere with people around you. And now that the aim here is to try to avoid people staring at you. So when that happens, it's -1. You can only lose points. And yeah, a shop is a great place to play this. You have to sneakily move around and try not to be too visible, so people don't look at you. And it's giving great visuals too. Another one. This is maybe also solving with the sounds, the fact that people performing have no clue what you're doing. So at least when I follow them, they know that I'm following them because they hear this very typical coin sound. So yeah, I'm not filming them, I'm stalking them a little bit, but actually I'm playing a game. So Multi-Mario. It's all available on Snapchat, so you can give it a try and see how that feels. So is this what our future AR reality is going to be like? And I think, no, that's not going to be the case. And one of the reasons I see is, for example, this list of things an app should be, how an app should behave when it needs to be accepted in the App Store of Apple. So it should avoid unwanted outcomes. The quality of the experience should be great. It shouldn't include hidden or undocumented features. It should have some useful functionality or entertainment value. And behaviors in ways people expect. So this is actually, like in all perspectives, this is not art. You know, in art you have unexpected things, you have hidden messages, you have things that work in a very incomprehensible way. So I'm a bit afraid that if Apple is going to define what apps are going to be available on our AR devices, it's going to be a very boring world, very functional, nothing surprising, nothing undocumented or hidden. So no Mario coins collecting. And that's even a bigger problem when you start using AI in augmented reality, because then you don't even have a sort of control over what's appearing. This is a style transfer rendering on a live image, and yeah, you have no longer any control over the outcome except choosing the filter you're using. And yeah, this is what we are going to be seeing when we look at each other through devices like this, the Meta Quest. There has been tons of new videos, people using it. Online, it's crazy. The Apple Vision Pro, we have seen that one too. And people are actually now wearing this device on the left outdoors. There's a guy that went into a cafe wearing one, and he ordered a sandwich. That's him.
I would like your large latte with whole milk. Yes. And I would
Yeah, I found that quite funny. Also a bit weird. I mean, this is not really a device to use outdoors. To be honest, I think this is something you do at home. If you have 12,000 euros to spend, then you can buy 4, and you can sit at home, enjoy AR with your family. Or you can do it cheaper, where a device like this is the Snap Spectacles. I've got one, and so I sometimes play AR games with my daughter. This is one where you have to sort of control a fish with your movements. And then when the fish get together, they kiss. And it's a reaction to all the shooter games we keep seeing. Whenever people think of multiplayer AR, it's always a shooter game where you have to run around and chase each other and shoot and kill. So I thought, okay, how to do it differently? And I have that thought very often, how to do it a bit different. This is another exploration of sort of a great location for a game, I think. If you could use your hand to make like moving creatures or objects. And if you could move them up the escalators, this could be a great multiplayer game, I think. But I never really finished it. So people don't really appreciate it when you start filming in public space. I've often that I have to remove my footage when people ask me what I'm doing. So also this waving of hands. Maybe in the future we will be in a metro and it will look like this. New problems that you can, like cyberbullying, to like kill each other's holograms or annoy each other. But yeah, that's the future. For now, it's what I notice. It's just me, and I don't want to be waving around because then people think I'm a lunatic. So I've been trying how to control things with just subtle movements, and this is me controlling an airplane just with a subtle head movement. And yeah, it takes a bit of practice, and of course you can't control everything with it. But this one works quite fine. And I tested it, and people, had no problem with me flying the airplane inside the bus. And I think that would be different when I would be doing like that. So people just, they kept staring at their phone, and all was okay. And I think we are going to be seeing more of these situations in the future, because AR, XR devices were looking really big, and they're getting smaller and smaller. And that means that you don't even know if somebody in front of you is wearing one or not. That made me think of making this overview, thinking when would certain people be wearing certain glasses, or maybe even never. Well, this is something I'm not going to read at all, but it can be found somewhere on my website. That it's a thing I should update, because sometimes new events happen, and then the whole world changes again. But what I'm sometimes wondering is when would it be something you would use an AR wearable? For example, when you want to assemble an IKEA bookshelf, then it's great if you can see in 3D how it should be working. Another one that relates a bit like this is when you lose your keys. Who's sometimes losing keys at home when you want to leave to a place? Yeah, that happens. When you could then ask your glasses, okay, where have you seen them recently? And the device would say, yeah, under the table, under that plant, they used to be there. And then, yeah, they're there. So this is a useful one. More useful things, if you go shopping and you pick exactly the right things in your basket, you're pointed to where these products are, and they're perfectly fine because you're all measured with your quantified self stuff. Who wants to be shopping efficiently? Yeah, also some people. So this could be your moment thinking, hey, I'm sometimes going to wear AR glasses. There's a patent by Magic Leap when you cut a cucumber. It's a game on the Magic Leap, that is. So maybe this is not the one that convinces you to wear AR glasses all the time, but still. There's, by the way, many patents that are a bit strange, like this one. If you make a heart symbol, the interpretation of this symbol is patented. So only some people will be able to do this in the future, and others will have to find other ways. Recognizing a bored audience, it's another patent I like. So you have your glasses and you look, and you get this information on who's still listening and who's not. And this one is useful. Crossing the street safely. Who wants this? Yeah, a few people. Well, I hope you're in the ecosystem of Apple, because it's a patent, and that means that yeah, folks not having this this device will have to do it differently. So they're on their own devices, maybe even safer. I don't know. So it might also be the moment where there's going to be a new digital divide of like smart people with glasses. I'm not driving a car, and I'm also not crossing the street, but I bike. And I thought, yeah, I'm thinking of all these problems that might occur in the future. So I thought, is it actually useful or usable to have like a menu in front of me all the time? And the conclusion is no. But what I did find out is that when you have a menu that appears like within the physical space and then reappears again, that could be a way to be operating your glasses while on a bike. So here, it's again head gestures you use to pick the right letters. And you see, you can still focus on the environment and on the interface. They're not competing for attention. They're all one. And it took me actually a whole day to write "Hello World." I must confess. So it goes fast these days. I think just a month ago or even less, Mark Zuckerberg announced a new device with 2 cameras inside and a no AR feature. So just it looks with you, recognizes things, and then talks to you. And I don't really get it why you want to be wearing a device with 2 cameras that are connected to Facebook, but maybe some people will. And I will definitely miss the visuals. For example, here I've created this lens, which I like. It's when it's maybe not for all generations here, but I was a big fan of E.T. when I was young. And to be able to bike around with E.T. in front of me on the bike is, for me, that's a reason to wear AR glasses. And here there's a little bug. Yeah. Yeah, so E.T., maybe that's for me, but like the general audience wants other things with AR glasses. They want, for example, translations, a translating device. Google blows our minds with live translations. So you don't have to be a very creative person to think of AR apps that blow people's mind. And once again, I think to have a cluttered interface like this, I don't think this works, actually. So we were talking about something, we were all happy and, oh, great, this is going to be it. But I'm not sure. But I found this fix. So if you really want to be wearing AR and, for example, watch a video while you're walking, I have this gesture that you can use to activate the video and then put it in transparent mode. Yeah. Tiny solutions for maybe tiny problems. It's not you can also not wear your AR glasses, of course. This is more on a fundamental level that I don't want to have a device that controls me with messages appearing all the time. So I want to be able to regulate it. Like if there's a notification, do I want to ignore it? Or when do I want to see it? I want to be able to configure it. And maybe even think of zones in my view. So nothing in the middle can appear. Maybe somewhere in the corner, it's fine. So I created this sort of real-time configuration tool that you can use to say, no, now I don't want any disturbances right in the middle. And yeah, this is where it's going to. So it's not just the translation that this device is going to do. This is equipping the device with an assistant. This is quite recent, October 17th. So they also know that the translation is just one thing. But to have an assistant means that the device is going to look with you all the time. And then tries to control you. Like, okay, here's something maybe you should buy. And it's these patent filings that look just a bit worrisome, that you become a sort of a human robot that is being directed to a product. And maybe advertising can become next level when you are walking around in the city, you're recognizing yourself all the time. That might convince you to accept a job or buy a product. Sort of immersive next level advertising. Here is one too. Kom bij ons werken. And the commercial opportunities in this field are amazing. It starts with buying your device, but then maybe unlimited face filter, a bigger field of view. Maybe you need a sort of virus scanner. cloud storage to store all the stuff you're recording, maybe to have some smart analysis of what's going on around you. If you have dumb glasses, yeah, your semi-digital you is also a bit dumb. So it's going to be a pricey thing to upgrade you to a proper future human, I think. And that way of thinking for me originated from the time I spent in Second Life. I was a big fan. I think I spent 2 years day by day running around in Second Life, and sometimes I looked like this. And sometimes I look different, and it was possible in Second Life to buy stuff to enrich your avatar. So here you could buy a little component that makes you a really great dancer. And it's funny, if you spend 2 years walking around with this one avatar, if that avatar then suddenly can dance very well, it almost feels like you can do that very well. And I think in the future we'll be upgrading ourselves in this way. So there's going to be this store where you can enhance your own skills, qualities, your vision, your reaction, your AI components, things like that. I've been doing some sort of speculative research into this. I've created a fictional app store with apps that could become reality one day. And of course, the whole world is not organized like this, but it's still nice to think about this and have some controls. For example, in 2030, if you have a limiter on your AI intelligence, do you want it to make errors for you deliberately? It's these nice little things that help you to think, okay, what would I want in this future? Another one, the mode switcher. If you're wearing glasses that follow you around all the time, gather data to understand you better, to advise you, maybe they should not follow you all the time. So maybe you should be able to switch mode. Drip of water. And you can study this patent meanwhile. Yeah, to me this also looks a bit. Yeah, I'm a little worried when I see this. You know, a parcel word, a network. It feels like your brain is taken over. I don't know if you remember the computer says no sketch from the past, but I think in the future we'll be sitting in front of people that say no, but then they have no clue why. They just say no because their glasses advise them to say no. Or a fight for your default AI each day. So, and it's hard to read here, but also we always accept when you phone some agency or a company, can the recording be recorded, can the call be recorded for training purposes? And I think that's going to happen to regular encounters as well. Yeah, the glasses are going to record it because the AI needs to be trained. Your AI needs to be trained. And then if you're in front of somebody like that, there's no opt-out, not yet. Black Mirror, great inspiration, of course, with perhaps one day that even we don't need to wear a wearable, but it can be a contact lens or an implant even. But yeah, the foremost thing is that this whole ecosystem is going to work like this. So there's going to be inputs, processing, and outputs through your heads-up display. And it's not only about the glasses. There's a new device, the Humane AI pin, and it's a thing you can wear here, and it just records everything, not as a video stream, but it analyzes. So for now, here it would recognize, hey, there's some people, it's dark, you're standing here. So it's not recording like in the Black Mirror episode, but it's just documenting everything that's going on. So yeah, your whole life is going to be searchable and useful for sort of AI advices that you can get. And that made me think,
are you busy?
Yeah, I made this app that asks me questions all the time.
Are you confident?
Because this is the type of...
are you daydreaming?
Yeah, it's this data that the system cannot get from me in other ways. You know, this is not on Facebook. It should not guess this. It should ask me how I'm feeling. So if I'm adding this data to the whole bunch of data about me, I have a better feeling of the outcome that I can expect there. Because this is what you don't want. You don't want to give all your data to a big black box, to the cloud, but it should be the other way around. You want to become sort of providing your own AI systems with your own data, but you need more in order to make that right. You don't want general intelligence. You don't want to be the average person reacting based on everybody's wishes and thoughts. No, you want to have your own sort of intelligent system. So here's another one.
You are riding a bike. Why?
I'm on my way to a meeting.
You are on the ferry. Why?
I'm not in a hurry.
You're not stopping for a coffee at this highly recommended coffee place. Why? You are having a meeting. Why? You are holding 6 bananas. Why?
I am going to buy these bananas.
You need fruit, but you are looking at flowers. Why? You are looking at a signpost. Why?
On Friday, I like to practice my analog navigation skills.
Okay, sorry for the long clip, but that's also maybe a way to show you what it actually means to be training your AI system. And it's horrible to have all these interventions all day. And so maybe we should not do that. But yeah, you know the consequences then. That means that you are going to be guided by an AI that's not personalized, that's not you. So I think that question is going to be there. So I thought, okay, let's just give it a try, see what happens when you have to answer all these questions all the time. Be your own robot. I think that is going to be crucial when this technology is going to be so important in our life. You have to find ways to make it yours, to control it, and that's going to be a very personal matter. You can also say, I don't care, or I don't use it, and you can try to do that for a while, of course. I'm not sure if this is going to be needed, but maybe it will be. Jailbreaking a pair of AR glasses. Who's still jailbreaking their iPhone? Is that happening still? I think we stopped doing that because they are so expensive. But it's something that in the past you had to do that because then you could have many apps you could not regularly get. And I think it's important that your AR glasses should not become something. Yeah, this is not what you want. You know, you want different things. And in my case, it's easy. I can think of many things I can do with it. And for me, this gives me a purpose wearing one. This is a finger gesture recognition combined with wall detection, and I can make a graffiti piece like this just in a few seconds. And that's amazing. But still, it looks a bit like ordinary graffiti. So I made another iteration, this one. And I think that's also the bottom line in much of what I do, that I always think, hey, can I do it differently? So this is also a variation of a graffiti writing method where you draw a little piece and then it's being repeated on a whole building. And that was the one I wanted to end with, just as a sort of inspiration, because I've, of course, been telling you a very difficult story about AR glasses and all the troubles we are going to have and all the solutions we have to find to fix it, but it can also just be a lot of fun. If you just make things, try things, and experiment, then there's a whole world to discover. So I would like to end with that positive statement. Thank you. Questions? Maybe, maybe not. All clear? Then,
or comments?
A comment, yeah, sure. No comments?
The general question to nourish the conversation, but what are you most excited about when you look at the integration of AR into public spaces and your own use of it?
I think you can be you're empowered to do so many things that there's no easy alternative to do it differently. So if I would have to build something for real, that, yeah, then it's an investment of materials, of stuff, and I need a permission, and there are so many things that might give you a no. But in AR, you have this freedom to just do everything. It's just a matter of spending time and finding out how things work. So it's a creative place. That's what I find very exciting. All right, then I give the microphone back to you.
Thank you, Sander, for this inspiring lecture. Having ET in a bike basket sounds amazing to me. We'll have a short break, a 5-minute break before our next panel, and hope to see you for that too.
Can we have just a little bit less light?
Okay, we're back. So, dear audience, we will continue with the panel Creating Extended Worlds, Good Practices in Producing XR Artworks. And I want to welcome our guests, our moderator Boris Debaker from V2, Crystal Bauer from Ars Electronica, Julien Lomé, Cosmosia Association, Marie Point from Dark Euphoria, and Lola Baraldi from Mutec. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Anna. And welcome to the first panel of today, where we're going to talk about how to make XR good practices. What do we encounter and what not? So I asked every panelist to prepare a short take or an angle or a statement. And I would like to begin on my left-hand side with Crystal.
Let's see if that's a good decision.
Well, we'll take it from here.
Yes, because we are actually maybe one of the few institutions in here that don't actually produce XR and VR projects. So we are part of this program, and I can honestly say I had a very hard time finding a best practice example, as you've asked us to do, because I feel there are a lot of things out there, but not yet really targeting what I personally would consider a meaningful usage of XR technology yet. So, I mean, there are, for example, the Black Movement Library by LaJune Macmillan, who's been creating an archive, actually, of movements that come from different communities, Black communities, to extend existing archives, as most projects that work in XR, AR, and other technologies. They, of course, don't create the archives themselves, but they start using the ones that already exist, created by large companies very often. So that is one interesting approach, but it doesn't really directly go into the production of new projects. But for me, the challenge behind the technology is, or the challenge behind creating new projects within the technology is to finding a meaningful way of using it. And one of that potentially could be that I feel that humankind has a limit in understanding effects we are having on our planet, effects we are causing, such as effects of the climate or consequences of the climate crisis, and could potentially those technologies that allow us to extend our realities, not create new ones forcefully as we always do in VR, but extend our realities, help us to envision something that we otherwise have a very hard time understanding. So I'm very much hoping and looking forward that the community here will be able to move in that direction at some point. And that would be at least my starting point to the conversation, as especially the technology that we are talking about is not something that just is existing in virtual spaces. I mean, we talk about ChatGPTs and others. They are very physical center points of those technologies, and the energy and the usage of the materials that are used in those technologies have a very strong effect on how we live on this planet. So I think we should not forget that when we talk about different experiences in that.
All right, so to sum it up, it's a sustainable take on it, Crystal. So
social and sustainable.
Social and sustainable. When we extend ourselves, we need to be very aware of our human conditions bound to this planet Earth. All right, Julien.
Yeah, thank you. So just to introduce, I'm Julien Lomé. I'm a PhD student in Paris. And we've created an association to show artists and creation in all of the France with a friend of Lyon, another from Paris. So our idea is to show art in very other spaces like little cities, or for people who don't have access in digital art or in research in general, because it's a very important public for us to show art in general. We've created this association to show little artists from universities who can create very unique artworks in research and in creation, and also bring them to these places in the little cities. So it's a very important target to have, because we want to show art for everybody and research for everybody, because we have to continue the future of research and creation in general. So we have to inspire some new public in this situation. Yeah.
Right. So and the collaborative element there is very important.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
So in the making, in the creation, but also in the experience.
Exactly. Yeah. We have to explain the technologies to people who couldn't understand, because they are not. It's not the art that they could see and experiment every day. So we want to create workshops and also maybe lessons for everybody to just democratize the technologies and art, because it's important to have this artistic vision of technologies, of course.
All right. Thank you, Julien. And I'll pass the mic to Marie.
Thank you. Oops. Yes, I think it would have been easier for us to talk if the panel would have been called bad practices in producing XR, because I think since I'm a producer, we always learn from all the mistakes we did, because also it was a new field for me to approach, coming more from the art science field, I guess, or digital art. And when we talk about XR, the technological level becomes a bit another story. This is the first thing I noticed. It's hard to stay in a very DIY level, and it's hard to master or the value chain. And I found your talk very interesting, Sander, because I really found this mix between a very DIY approach, but also we can see there is a lot of technological research and prototyping and stuff behind. So also as a producer, the first thing I would say is really I would join Crystal on this point, is to try to avoid the digital artifice or the wow effects that we can get sometimes for once with technology, and to all the time come back to the content, to the story, to the meaning, because a lot of time what we see is that technology is not the answer, or the first technologies that the artist or the people imagine are not the right answer, and sometimes they move from more low-tech, or sometimes they also switch to totally different technology. The other thing is that I think with XR an important thing is the role of the audience. The discussion we have with artists, we try to very quickly in the creation process talk about the audience experience. What do you want people to be? Are they spectators or actors or players or participants? And I think this is a very important dimension, and it happened that we kind of integrated this part a bit too late in the project, and then the impact of the project was a bit lost in the way. Another thing that I would say is that it's important, if the artist doesn't have the technological skills or knowledge, it's very important also from the beginning, from the writing stage, to start to discuss with creative technologists, with developers, so we don't stay at the concept level too long, because the technology is not the answer, but the technology has consequences on the form of the artwork and on the experience. And sometimes, because we talk about contemporary art, as we were saying, technology can be looked at not really important, or it's just a tool, or it's a bit not very interesting, but in a way it is just a tool, but in a way it's very interesting to understand it and to open the black box and to understand what we talk about when we write the project. And the last thing is also for us that a big mistake we did is to not think about the display and the setup and the touring of the artworks soon enough in the process. So this is also something we try to bring in the conversation very early, is what the project is going to be look like. Is it an in-situ project for just one space, or is it a project that is supposed to tour? How can we be, what level of autonomy do we want to have on this project? Because the more different skills you need and the more people you need to rely on, the less independent you can be with your project. And it happens to us that we had to kind of stop some projects because like a specific developer had to come to every exploitation, but he decided to grow some organic farm in Les Cévennes or whatever. So this is because also it's not a field where we have standards. We say it's like we are exploring this, so we cannot rely. I mean, the people who have the right skills, who can be the interface between artistic and technical sides. We don't have millions of them, so this is also why we are involved in this kind of project, to think about the training of people, the transfer of knowledge, and I think I already said a lot.
Thank you. Lola.
No summary for her?
You want me to?
Cool, yeah. So my approach, maybe it's a little bit more practical, but it's a nice continuation to the knowledge transfer aspect. So we're an electronic music and digital art festival, and we decided to complicate our lives by producing our own XR content. And for this, we worked with artists that had also never worked in VR before. So in terms of good practices, one thing that we all shared was lack of legal literacy and knowledge about what this entailed from an artist perspective to create a work that was up for distribution, and from our perspective to produce a work and put it up for distribution. So one of the first phases of our project was just defining the terms and taking a lot of time to sit with the artist and define the terminology of this new industry, because we're shaping the industry as we go. There are not that many templates, there are not that many standards. Even, creating the contract was such a long-term process, because there are not that many templates of contracts from producer to artist production, like you would have in the film industry, for example. So we sat down with the artist, we defined, what's a producer, what's the role of a distributor, what's a publisher, what are sales agents, what are the standards in terms of profit sharing, what are the different financial models, without deciding anything yet. This was before the contract phase even, just to be on the same page about the terminology. And once we developed a contract template, we had mediation sessions with the artists on things like intellectual property in XR, the role of copyright, all these different considerations. And we actually booked separate meetings for them with a lawyer that was not our lawyer and that was not their lawyer, just so that they could ask questions and actually have the tools to negotiate with us, which was just a recognition that we were embarking on this very experimental project. And in the spirit of sharing, we do have an annotated, simplified version of a contract that's up on our website for other people in the same predicament that we were.
Okay, thank you. So actually, I see some patterns here that emerge. Depression. No, not depression. But of course, as you said, we could also talk about the bad practices or basically the problems that we're facing, but they have a lot to do with kind of like there are no standards. And then the question is, do we want standards? Because as Sander also was showing in his presentation, if we want the standards that Apple is going to basically introduce into our production pipeline, is that actually favorable? That's really a bit of the question. Marie, you're coming, of course, more from the performative type of production. I've witnessed also the Mutech videos, which were adaptations from live AV shows, which were more like, a live AV show is an experience that you have with a community in a venue, and then you're transporting that into basically a one-off. So we see that we're talking about a lot of elements here, but maybe to begin, we could potentially prioritize some of these things. We have, of course, heard more on a meta level, the sustainability, collaboration, contracts. If we would say, because Realities in Transitions is very much targeting towards creating a community for emerging artists, what are the handles, what are the guidelines that we would say, like as people already working in the field, that we would like to put forward if somebody would start a production? What from our bad practices have we learned already? Yeah.
So something that also coming more from really an exhibition practice rather than a performance practice, I would consider is discussing with the artist innovative collaborations. So no artist will ever be able to develop everything by themselves, no matter whether they're already a professional in that field or whether they're an emerging, really only learning the tools by now. So I don't think that everyone needs to be capable of doing everything by themselves, which is simply not possible anymore. So establishing the collaborators, the tools, the libraries, is a starting point that very much easily links then into the legal side and the IP side of the projects. On the other side, I couldn't agree more that it needs a decision very soon, an understanding of what is the interactivity and how do you want to engage audiences with before even discussing too much of the content yet. So I think there can be a catalog of certain type of questions, checklists, whatsoever, in order to discuss things that are maybe not automatically part of a production, of an artistic production in other areas yet. However, I would always then take kind of a turn and consider once more of how do people experience that. So what are ways not just of interacting, but also in distributing, as we've said before, of how can works be presented in different ways, especially also in places that might not have the tools, nor the budgets, nor the skills to do that. And we are now talking about European institutions who at least have usually some sort of access to it, right? But how do we distribute that in other places of the world where skills and knowledge and technology is even scarce? And how, on the other side, do we bring those creative perspectives again into the production, which with the European project is difficult, but I think we should not stop doing that as well. And then for me, one final thing that I feel is not just in XR or those kind of technology, but very often kind of missing, is closing the circle again. So not just spending weeks and months, money and a lot of energy in creating one project, presenting it then once in an exhibition or in a performance program, but really then thinking also about what are the male practices, what are the things, how did the interaction actually really work? How is it then able to continue? Can it be presented in different ways in an exhibition, in a performance, in different aggregate states that supports then a diverse presentation? But also really then doing an analysis and understanding with the audiences, with the artist, with the stakeholders involved to really get a sense of where did that project actually take us? What impact did it really have? And not just then, and we do the same thing, so it's criticizing ourselves as well, not just then leave it on the side, simply, and moving on to the next project.
Mm-hmm. So on the level of the makers, you would say fostering interdisciplinarity would definitely be still very much on the agenda. On the other side, closing the circle, basically the sustainable loop in the whole production thing, it sounds something that PhD researchers would do. Julien.
No, but I agree, it's usually the boring side, that's why it doesn't ever happen, right? Because you need to create some statistics, some interviews, some data sets, something that helps you to better understand an impact of a program, of a project that you've been doing. And no one likes to do it, including myself, because it's always more fun to just move on to the next one. But how will we ever learn? How will we ever understand also sustainable cycle that goes beyond the economical and ecological question of moving and forward? Because VR and those technologies, they have been here for a very long time. It's not as if this is super new. It has been also accessible, especially in the more industrialized world. And of course, now we have new tools, but we are still discussing the same questions of, being there as individuals in this space, not being able to share. I mean, the questions don't change, but we don't get any closer to any kind of, I don't even want to call it a solution, but the change of those questions.
Julien, do you have from your doctoral research practice any insights?
Yeah, it's funny because my PhD is on collaboration, so
Voilà.
yeah, I'm here. But yeah, I want to thank you because it's very hit that we are creating but also researching, and it's a circle, and we have to do both each time, and it's always the same questions. What is R and XR? It's always the same question since maybe the 80s, but it's the society who's changed with internet, with lots of you know, even Me Too had changement in the market. So we have to change and always ask the same question because it's always changing. And you were talking about standard. I think it's complicated to have a standard because it's a very huge community, the XR. We are a little part of this community, but we can just specialize in different categories, maybe in living art, or maybe in AA, or maybe in research question, and we can just put less people, but more specialized in each category, and have a huge moment of discussion between everybody. But if you want to do everything, if everybody wants to do everything, it will be not much focused. I think it's a good way to collaborate and just discuss in different states.
Yeah, and we, of course, indeed, it's a huge field, extended reality, and we're the niche that wants to try to do something creative with it. Yeah. So that's, of course, also where we're trying to figure out what is, attainable and what not. Marie, you as a producer of extended reality experiences, performances, did you see patterns? You were already, of course, telling a little bit like, okay, this could have been done better, we should focus more on that. Where do you see, or what would be your advice to somebody who is really fresh in the field, somebody that would come to you and say like, hey, you're a producer of these types of works, where do I start?
I don't know, where do I start? Actually, most of the time they don't ask us. I mean, they always have ideas, so they always have a start, most of the times. But I think I think this question of kind of shared authorship, it's a really interesting question because maybe the difference with more, if I can call them traditional arts, it's really often that in XR projects you have at the end of the thing many authors, especially for interdisciplinary projects. For example, we produced a contemporary dance show using VR, and so we have a choreographer who created the dance piece, and then we worked with a studio and with an artistic director who created the VR part, but also with an interactive designer who was the author of the co-author of the whole piece, making the virtual show and the real show communicate and be meaningful together. So at one point we were like, okay, but who should be an author in this case? Because the people who are making it, or the people who just thought about the concept, and this is questions we always invent and reinvent. And a lot of times it's hard to know at the writing stage or at the prototyping stage how it will end up, because also the roles of people can change during the process, and it's so iterative that we always come back and forth, and this is how technology works, and so this is the first thing. So it's a bit the balance between how much things you are able to make yourself as an artist, and how much things you are also able to let go and put in the hands of other people. So I think this is a very interesting discussion we have with the artists we work with. And another thing, and I think our role of producer is really important here, is that the more interdisciplinary the project is, the more languages you have to translate between people. Because, for example, this word of producing doesn't mean the same thing if you work in audiovisual field or in performing arts field. So we are all the time, and I think this is a bit what you said, Lola, kind of trying to get common ground or common basis to know what we are talking about. And actually, as a producer, a lot of our work is this mediation job, exactly, because the thing also when, like, where should I start? Sometimes the artist starts with a lot of expectations about technology, and actually what we also figured out is that the artists who work the less with technology sometimes are the more tech addicts, in the sense that they see something that it's a bit fancy and they really want it. And the people who are hands-on in technology most of the time are also more critical and more, so it's not what we imagined first, because, but so the thing is that we are also here to kind of all the time come back to, okay, but this is just technology, so it will not make the artwork, it will not make the thing happen. And so this is one thing, and we are also all the time coming back to feasibility also, because I mean, most of the time our work as a producer is rescaling, rescaling the project, making it feasible, making it stable also, because we are all working with, as you say, in all our projects we have a lot of research and development part, but when you are in the theater or on stage or in the museum, you cannot be in the experiment. I mean, you cannot say, okay, maybe it will work, maybe it won't. I mean, or you can, but can be disappointing for the audience. So this is always this back and forth between artistic and technological innovation and the feasibility, the stability, and the appropriation by the audience also. And this is, again, coming back to what I was saying, like always taking the audience in account from the beginning.
Yeah. And as you said in the beginning, also just to plunge in, to start and demystify the tech part of it.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I mean, we could maybe also learn something or take away something of other types of media that we already have been witnessing these evolutions throughout film. I mean, it also quite often starts with a scenario, a book that is then translated to a screenplay, whatnot. But that was also the interesting take for Mutech. As I said, you had already a AV performance. Are you thinking now to also do it the way around? Because we're going from many to a single experience. Could we learn something also to first produce something in that realm and then porting it to?
I think that ties on to something really interesting, which is having, just like you'd have the technical conversation at the beginning of the project, because it's going to limit your concept or empower your concept, having the distribution conversation at the beginning of your project as well, because that does affect the medium that you're going towards. Like, do you want the highest quality piece, or do you want the most distributable piece? Because it's not necessarily going to be the same headset. So in our case, what is interesting is, well, we have different formats that can fit different spaces based on what the spaces want to welcome. So yeah, it could be an AV piece, it could be an XR piece, can it be a dome piece? Are there projections? Are there ways to make it more welcoming to a higher amount of people? Because that's what venues are asking more and more. So, I mean, doing it the other way around, we haven't really thought of that yet. Even just adapting something to XR that already existed as an AV piece, where the artists were completely free to use their own tools and then had to confront this constant comparison with the technical limitations of the XR tools. That maybe that was a little bit cruel from us, but they pulled through, and they had to find new modes of expression of the same concepts expressed in completely other ways, because they had to circumvent the limitations, and they all did it in very different ways. They all had very different ways to do it. So definitely, if we were to do this again, we would have that conversation earlier on in the project. Like, what are the possible formats of distribution? What do you want? What do we want? And how does this affect how we're producing it?
Something I would add is also try to talk with venues very early in a very early stage, and I think approaching them first with residencies or other processes, because for example, if we talk about performing arts and XR, it's really hard for them to imagine other forms than this format we are here. For example, having a participative, immersive experience in the main hall of the theater, having slots just for 10 people. This is some stuff they are not used to, and it's true that the limited jauge it scares them a lot. So trying to get the conversation really in advance. And another thing, it's a bit a bad word, but the packaging of the project, the design of the project. A lot of times, what we finally do is to have like a bit multi-formats project, and like a project that can be that has a show part, or that had different scales.
They can translate to the context.
And can be adapted to the different context. And this is, I would not say that I would recommend it to an artist, because it should not be the center of the conversation, but just thinking that not to be too dependent on one tech or one format can also help, and think about multi-format and different kind of way of experiencing the content, which I think is very interesting regarding what we are talking about, like extended realities. Like having different entry doors to your artistic project can be really an added value if you want to talk to very different venues and exhibitions or performing contexts.
So basically, start experimenting to demystify the tech, try it out as soon as possible, work together, be sustainable, and get your legal shit together. Thank you very much. Are there any questions, comments, remarks from our steep hill? No? Oh, over there.
Hello. Yes. Have you thought about building bridges with the video game industry? Because there are several studios that already manage to place 3D models in space, and this is often the use case in XR artworks. So have any of you explored these bridges?
Thank you. So maybe not from the production perspective, but what we are actually trying to do is put our works out on Steam and other like video game content stores, and as it's part of the experiment. We want to see, like, can this be a mode of passive revenue for us and for the artists? And one of the first things that we were confronted with in creating artistic experimental VR is that the standards of value for a video game are very different, and which dominate these platforms. It's very different for the type of work that we're creating in terms of, usually in video games, what will create more value is length and replay value and connectivity, like networked experiences. And that's not the direction that we are going in creating these more like passive and contemplative art pieces. So it's definitely been, I don't have a direct answer, but one thing that I would encourage producers to do is to try and keep putting these more artistic works out there, because the more they exist, the more value is generated, and the more this new definition of works can be made, and it's not just going to be like one producer. But definitely there's a lot of takeaways from the gaming industry that are already much more developed in some ways than we are, and you know, that's one of the difficult parts as well, is even getting developers to support with, you know, an arts organization budget when they're used to gaming industry budget. So I think there's a lot of bridges to be built, but I don't have an answer, really.
We'll find out in time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll take a short 10-minute break before our next panel on educational practices in XR. Thank you. This So we'll slowly continue with our program. We're entering new realities with educational practices in XR technology. I would like to welcome our guests, Vanessa Hannesschläger from Ars Electronica, Gino Šutić from UR Institute, Tomislav Plesec, Gaming Incubator Pismo, Croatia, and Jesus Lopez from Lev Festival. So welcome, and I give the floor to you and the mic.
Thank you very much, Anna, and welcome to all our audiences. Kudos to you for bearing with us at this already rather late hour in the day. I would like to start our panel with a round of introductions so that we learn a little bit about our panelists and in what ways they are engaged with XR educational practices. But before I actually hand the word over to you, I would like to point out that this was not actually intended as a panel, as we are missing, unfortunately, due to sickness, one panelist, Sara Tirelli. And so I would like to use the opportunity to give a shout out also for her. Sara is with the Fondazione Centro Sperimentale di Cinematografia, and please forgive my very bad Italian, which I don't speak, where she is about to found a brand new XR school for in artistic contexts. So it's really a shame that we did not have a chance to also have her contribute to our conversation today, but just this as a shout out, stay tuned to also hear what is coming out of Venice in the next year. And with that, I would say we start at the other end of this row. Jesus, warm welcome. Jesus is with the Lev Festival, one of the partners in Realities in Transition, and has spent the morning with 30 teenagers. So a big applause, please, for Jesus for still standing. So, Jesus, please introduce yourself and give us a bit of an insight of when you're not working with Croatian teenagers, what educational practices play a role in your work around XR.
Okay. Thank you very much for the introduction. So, I work for Lev Festival. I am, let's say, the coordinator of the public program. If you don't know, the Lev Festival has two main editions every year. One of them is in the north of Spain, in Gijón, and it's the old one. And then we have a new one in Madrid, starting in 2019. So I've been designing educational experiences or activities from the beginning of this second edition of the festival in Madrid. So I can more or less tell how was for a festival the job of trying to build a community around the festival interested in the extended realities. Myself, I am computer scientist. I also studied to become a teacher, and I've been director of a public music school for 5 years now. So I really have a long experience on how to teach technology to people who want to do an artistic job with it, not like technology to do some office job or whatever. So talking about this experience at the Lev Festival, the main thing we did the first year was actually an open studio. Like, what can we do to invite people to meet themselves in this area? Because we believed in Madrid there wasn't this big community of people doing XR for the artistic field. So we kind of took the advantage of the huge community of followers of the festival to try to build this community around XR as an educational, as an artistical practice. And after that, every year we've been developing some workshops, some of them directed to students, people who want to become an artist or a designer or some artistical field. We've been trying to reach also business people, also to give an insight on how to be more critical with some business models, for example. We've been trying to reach more like pure artistical developers who want to create. So, try to diversify also the scene and try to reach everyone through educational activities.
Thank you very much. Tomislav, running an incubator, what kind of crowds do you deal with?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to this panel. Well, it's an interesting ride. To go from the beginning, I represent Regional Development Agency of Sisak-Moslavina County. And I believe that many of you have heard of Business Incubator Pismo, which is located in a very small town called Novska, which was very unknown town until 6 years ago when we started this story. And basically, I think this is the only business incubator which is focused solely on the game development industry, not only in this in Croatia, but probably in this part of Europe, if not only in the entire Europe. And basically, this incubator is just a part of a wider initiative which aims to bring digital transformation to our country, actually to our part of Croatia. And what we really wanted to succeed to achieve there was to stop the brain drain and to foster the economic growth, and also to introduce some new technologies, because we were primarily an industrial region which saw some very bad times recently. And well, interesting thing is that very soon when we started with our activities, there was really a lot of interest from a lot of young people. And one of the main pillars of our incubator is actually educations, which we do a lot and regularly. And so I can say that we have educations on 3 levels. We have 3-month-long educations for game design, for artistic design, and for programming. Those are 2 main branches for video game development. Those educations are for employed and unemployed people. Also, we have some more extensive educations that last for 6 months. They're also done, as the previous, which I mentioned, they're also done in collaboration with Croatian Employment Service. There was a lot of interest for that. And also, on top of all that, we managed to introduce a new vocational program in high schools in our county. So basically, we have 2 technical schools that offer a new program, which is called Video Game Developer, or Technician for Video Game Development. And that was really something that was really popular. There was a lot of kids who were really wanting to do that. And then we also had to do, at the beginning, a bit of explaining to tell them, you see, playing video games and creating them, it's not the same thing. But they're still very eager to engage in that. So I can say that there is really a lot of interest for that, but even more it's on this artistic part, where XR is very important part of that all. And just to give a little insight what the future brings for us, as gamers would say, we are now trying to level up. So we are just starting to construct our gaming campus, which will also include a faculty where we will have a higher education for game production, for game design, and for XR. And also some other things that we started doing lately also include the exploration of potential of connecting game development with artificial intelligence. Of course, there has always been some connection between those 2, but we are still seeking to see some more opportunities. And also we are seeking to see some opportunities for gamification of economy of other sectors. For example, how to help our local economy, our local companies to use virtual reality to, for example, train one of their workers on some of their equipment they have. So that's a short insight of what we do and what we plan to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have a very, I would say, arts-driven perspective and at least complementary, also very business-driven perspective. Where, Gino, do you see yourself in between those?
Yeah, people ask me that a lot. So I see myself as a glue in between spaces. It's always like gray zone, you know. So just a short intro. I'm directing a small innovation cluster made of UR Institute, which is devoted to applied scientific research, Association of Innovators of Dubrovnik-Neretva County, and a spin-off company for development of and commercialization of new technologies. Playing with VR and extended reality, we are actually relatively fresh in this area, while we have been doing youth education in general, but mostly youth education for 10 years now. We have like really big palette of educational programs for kids, youth, and adult. That we are continually developing and producing. Everything mostly deals with interdisciplinary fields of science, because in my opinion, this is where innovations are made. When we intersect different disciplines and domains is where the fun is. With talking about VR and extended reality, during COVID lockdown, unfortunately, all of the culture institutions, everything was under lockdown. So we found ourselves in a problem as a cultural sector, but also this gave us a cool opportunity to push ourselves into the domain of VR and XR. So we produced one EU project called Dubrovnik Postmodern, which actually seeked the development of alternative to the physical space of the city of Dubrovnik, which is really confining and suffocating creativity in a way, to open doors and provide space specifically to youth to spend some time and create and show off innovations, new stuff. So it was a really cool space during COVID times where you could hang out freely and develop, like inside of the space. We use it as a gallery space to exhibit several exhibitions, and all of it, we use the approach to co-create with the users. So youth was involved in the whole of the process of development of this VR world through a series of workshops in developing the VR world itself and the content which we provided inside. So a lot of online educations devoted to VR and XR. But my favorite domain, and this is maybe something that we are specific for, is the use of VR in popularization and development of some classical sciences which people mostly find boring, such as chemistry. We use VR in molecular engineering, developing new synthetic molecules, smart drugs, so pharmaceutical engineering and chemical engineering, which is really thrilling and immersive field, which is just emerging at the moment. And also, we constantly use this co-create with the users approach. So all of our science research and industrial innovation development processes are based on co-create with the users, on this inclusivity through the series of workshops and so on, so that we can provide next generation of youth innovators, scientists, artists, creatives with the skill set while they are still young, so they can even make more than we do.
Yeah, thank you very much for actually opening up a very interesting aspect that I think would be worth exploring further. I think when we talk about educational practices in relation to XR, our probably initial impulse is to think about how to teach XR application or how to teach XR programming. But what you're bringing up is the other side of the coin, which is actually using XR in educating, in teaching something that doesn't actually have to do anything with XR. So I think that is potentially, and I would like to hear everybody's opinion on that, two very different directions, and of course, two very different skill sets that you need to be teaching, that you need to be also bringing in when thinking about how to teach XR making versus how to teach in XR. Where do you see a potential to combine these things? Where do you see a potential to use XR to teach XR? Or do you believe that actually XR is better put to use to teach things that really go beyond, which was also a question that I think we were touching upon already in the first panel that we heard today, the question of content versus technology.
Yeah, I see, like, we definitely, in my opinion, we should use hybrid approach and definitely push for development of the both. Because we have VR as a technology and a media, and we have VR XR as a tool. So these are two different faces of the same technology, and they develop in parallel. But yeah, for me personally, since I'm a primarily biotechnologist and new media artist on the side, my first passion was chemistry. And when I was a kid, it's different how you visualized fields of your interest in your head, but when you come to a reality of the schooling classical educational system, when they numb down chemistry and mathematics as something black and white in 2D formulas on a blackboard, it's not so thrilling, you know. And experimentation in physical spaces requires a lot of resources and specialized conditions. So I like this use of VR, XR in this intersection of, like, we can visualize invisible world. Like, when you use VR, you see that the chemistry is not something black and white on a blackboard. It's actually not even 3D, but 4D. Like in our educational workshops, we would provide participants to emerge inside, to enter the molecule itself, to see it all around us. So it gives you a totally different perspective on the world around us, and it's an amazing tool to visualize something that you couldn't usually visualize, and then it becomes information in our heads that we can remix in a way and create innovations that can pop up in a physical world. So these different interactions of yeah, it's like extended reality, but, you know, like flipped. I like using it in this way, like developing in VR and producing in physical. And I think the industry is slowly shifting in this direction, even though it's emerging technologies. Everybody's trying to adapt really quickly. And I think it's a really good way to boost industrial development.
Tomislav, do you share that perspective?
Yes, I totally agree. There is a huge potential for XR, especially VR, to be used as a tool in education. Also, one of the actions that we do in Pismo is we have this project which aims to diversify technologies that we are trying to adapt in our economy, and also one of the branches of these actions is educational sector, where we will seek possibilities to incorporate VR in the education. But as you mentioned, the problem is that our formal education system is very rigid. So it will be very difficult to, to step up and to get into that and to finally adapt any of technologies for using it. So I think that the way to do it is through informal educations, to show what possibilities there are. And maybe then the formal public sector in education will see that there are some potentials and that technology really can be used. There is an example in Slovenia where they built an entire center for kids where they use virtual reality to teach them about space. So kids just immerse themselves into this room and it's like they are in the middle of the space. So it's an unforgettable experience for them. And there is a waiting list to go there for, like, I don't know, 2 years. And every school now recognizes that, and they want to include this to go in their school trips. So they want to send kids there. And hopefully they will see that this technology is not something out there which is very difficult to grasp. I hope that they will realize that maybe they don't have to take the kids to this center to see that. They can do it themselves. But of course, there is a lot of effort to be made to go into that direction.
Yes, well, using immersive spaces as a medium to make space more haptic is also something that we at Ars Electronica have quite some experience with, for all of you who are familiar with our most beloved Deep Space program. But that brings me to, let's say, maybe a more abstract question, which is, how do you see the relationship between the physicality and the virtuality, specifically in teaching XR, in educating about implementing XR? So Jesus, from the work that you have been doing, a lot of it has also happened actually in virtual spaces, right? So how can we not only in the physical space when we come together to learn something, but also actually in the virtual space educate about XR, and where do the challenges in general lie, or the differences in challenges when we talk about educating in virtual space about XR versus educating in real, in like physical space about XR, where then suddenly we have the whole hardware topic coming in?
Yeah, there is always a challenge. Obviously, it also, from my perspective, it changed heavily on the age of the people you're dealing with or you're talking to. I heard you and what you said about the possibilities of educating inside virtual spaces, but from my research, let's say, I kind of follow more the path of someone called Seymour Papert, which is the developer of Logo. Logo was the first programming language before now, which is called Scratch, which is a huge programming language that every school kid knows. And he made this reflection, like, why do we let our kids to be programmed by a computer? Like, why do we place our students inside a program? So instead of that, let's teach our students to program themselves. Yeah. So that was the beginning of the programming movement. And I really support this idea of empowering the students by giving them the access to the algorithmic thoughts or the logical mindset to be able to program a computer and to make the computer a tool for them and not just like a game. They go and they follow the steps that this game is giving them. So this is from the question before. From the one you now told me, when we talk about extended realities, I really like the idea of like fixing this adjective. Yeah, like we extend the reality we already live with. So for me, the first step is always to know your reality. Like if you live in a neighborhood, to really get to know your neighborhood, because that gives you the place your foot on the ground, and then from this reality that you're living with, then you can maybe point out what are the problems that you want to solve, or maybe you see the lack of something that your neighborhood or your area, your local region needs, and then you use extended realities to fix this problem or to make the reality better. So that's like my answer for your second question. I don't know what my colleagues think about it.
Yeah, just like in general, both approaches, what you mentioned, like teaching inside of VR and teaching in physical space, have different pluses and minuses. So in my opinion, this combination and hybrid approach, especially extended reality versus VR, is more thrilling, because what I noticed, like when I was teaching in physical spaces, classical subjects such as chemistry in high school and so on, kids today, youth today, but also general citizens, we have problems with disconnection from the physical real world. And it's like when you go into VR, it's easy to get lost and somehow to boost this connection. So I think we need to, whenever we are teaching, it's important somehow to introduce this connection in between physical and virtual to solve this problem of disconnection in a way. So I think this is the most important, and this is like something that I'm constantly trying to do whenever teaching inside of virtual environment and in physical environment, trying to merge the two in a way, like using both different methodologies, pushing both connection of what we are doing with the physical world and applied usages, but also making it personalized to the student who is actually learning. I think this is really important because when you can connect yourself to the topic and when you can connect the topic to the real world application, there is no need for memorization. You know, it's like natural process of learning, and it can result with pushing way of thinking in innovative way, like developing socially useful innovations and so on, which we are all seeking as a humanity society.
Yeah, I think the main point is to find the balance, to not to immerse too deep into the VR or actually to XR, and then to forget all about the physical world. So I think that we have to take the best of both worlds and use them in the best possible way, because there are some limitations in both of them, in physical and in XR. So it's a good way to explore how can the other technology fill the gaps of the other. So I think that is the point we're talking about here.
So I would say our main takeaway is that we need to teach how to stay real. I would like to open it up to our audiences and hear if there are any questions that you would like to ask or add. Maybe we can have a little bit of light to encourage people, and so that I can also see their hands if they would like to raise them. You could also tell us what you would like to learn about XR or in XR, since we have quite a few educators on the panel that would be happy to develop programs for you. If that is not the case, then I would say at this hour of the day, it's also very fair and square to thank our fantastic panelists. And take home the message to stay connected to reality. Thank you very much.
So we continue at 6:25, let's say, with a lecture from Valdemar Danri. It's an online lecture streamed live from MIT, so hope you stay with us. Atlantic. And yes, enjoy the rest of the program.
So hey everyone, I believe that was my introduction. So happy to be here. So my name is Valdemar Danru. I'm a research assistant at the MIT Media Lab. And today what I will be talking a bit about is this sort of provocative framing around my work, focusing on how my work sort of leans into this use of artificial intelligence technologies and extended reality technologies under this notion of organs, and how these organs, technologies, can reshape our senses and our cognition. So first, I would like to start by talking a little bit about what do I mean by organ. So the way that the term organ is typically used is to denote differentiated structures such as hearts and kidneys performing some specific function in an organism. And I think what a lot of people might argue, especially here, is that to some extent the technologies around us have started to take these different organ structures and help us in performing certain functions. And a lot of technologies are even becoming integrated onto the body, sensing the body, actuating the body, and playing with all the different kind of structures and systems that are working in the body. One really eloquent way that this has been put forward is by Kleins and Klein in the 1960s when they defined the term cyborg. And here they said, if man in space, in addition to flying his vehicle, must continuously be checking on thinking and making adjustments merely in order to keep himself alive, he becomes a slave to the machine. The purpose of the cyborg is to provide an organizational system in which such robot-like problems are taken care of automatically and implicitly, leaving man free to explore, to create, to think, and to feel. And at this time, this idea of a cyborg or having technologies be integrated into organs in the body really stemmed from this whole space race and how incapable humans are of going into space and existing and really flourishing because of the harsh circumstances. So they proposed that we should use technologies in order to modify man to live freely in these spaces. And I think that this is, although we're not moving out to live in space, I think the way that technology is evolving is somewhat towards, maybe not as crazy as this vision, but somewhat towards this idea. And this is really something that we're working on in my research group, in the fluid interfaces group. Here we're starting to think about like how can we build systems, like wearable systems, for instance, that can interface with the way that we reason about things and think critically in order to assist that cognitive skill. What about dreams? Is it possible to build technologies that interface with our dreams and can make us dream about specific things to make us more creative? Can we decode muscle movements from a person's jaw in order to guess what their intent is or what they want to say, and so forth? So in this presentation, I will focus specifically on 3 different kinds of cognitive and perceptual skills that my work has attempted to build these like organs around. So the first one is trying to assist in improving memory encoding using artificial intelligence. You can imagine, for instance, in augmented reality, you could create virtual overlays of the real world that could assist in how certain things are presented to you. And so in this project, we thought about, can we use AI-generated characters to augment learning content so that, for instance, your teacher can bring in a virtual character or a virtual avatar of Einstein teaching quantum mechanics or some of his equations instead of it being kind of recited outside of context. Because a lot of studies have shown that when you apply sort of social elements to learning material, it's easier to learn. But even if you don't like Einstein, you could also imagine learning about the exact same learning content from other people that you might look up to, for instance, Marilyn Monroe or Harry Potter. So here's just an example.
Today, we will learn about quantum mechanics.
Today, we will learn about quantum mechanics.
Today, we will learn about quantum mechanics.
So in order to evaluate this and see if people actually learn better when the learning content they're receiving is from a person that they look up to, we conducted an online experiment where we had people receive the exact same learning content from Elon Musk. This was before he was more of a controversial character. And then we compared it to just receiving the exact same learning content, the exact same voice, but from a generic random person.
Hello, I am a virtual agent generated to help provide information. Today, I'd like to...
So although, we told people that this is not a real person, this is an AI-generated person, what we found was that when people liked Elon Musk, they tended to want more advanced material within this learning context. Whereas if they did not admire Elon Musk, they actually wanted less advanced material from the instructor compared to this neutral, unknown person. Really demonstrating that being able to take learning content and specialize it to someone's personal factors could improve learning outcomes. And at the same time, we also found that people find it more exciting if they like Elon Musk, or they feel more happy and less frustrated. Another project that we've been working on is, thinking about what if we go beyond this step of just having the learning content be, be framed with this like AI-generated character. What if AI-generated characters that can, based on the data that's available from a person, let's say Einstein, all of his lectures, what if we gave an artificial intelligence all of this data and then allowed it to be something that students could interact with and ask questions? But another thing that really motivated this is, if we look at mementos throughout time, we've had all different kinds of technologies that have allowed us to remember the past in some way. And so we started thinking about what might the next thing be. And so we developed this project called Living Memories, where we did exactly this. We, here in this case, you can see we did Leonardo da Vinci. So we took all of his journals, all of his notes, and categorized it and gave it to our own kind of like system that we built, allowing this AI-generated character to draw from this knowledge when it answers questions to actually be authentic to what Leonardo da Vinci would have said, and in the style that he would have said it. And most importantly, to make sure that he doesn't say things that he hasn't said before. So here's just like a brief example. So you can ask it like, hello, who are you?
Hello, I am Leonardo da Vinci, an Italian polymath of the high Renaissance. Active as a painter, draftsman, engineer, scientist, theorist, sculptor, and architect.
And what you can see is, not only does it answer the question, but it also has the source from where it drew that information in the data underneath. We gave this to people, and we found that, although it could be very exciting to interact with Leonardo da Vinci, people actually did not tend to become more curious or have more effective learning or motivation to learn when they just interacted with this character, primarily because people did not know what to ask Leonardo da Vinci because they weren't very familiar with his works. However, what we found was that when we allowed people to first read a little bit about Leonardo da Vinci, then their learning effectiveness was significantly improved over just reading text about Leonardo da Vinci, and they were also significantly more motivated to learn. And in extension to this, I also made a version of myself based off of this system, given my data. And you can imagine, in the future, real-time streaming data to these AI-generated characters. And this was more of a provocative art installation that I did, but but you can imagine like asking it something like, are you busy right now? I really want to have a meeting. If I share this with other people.
Unfortunately, I can't meet right now. I'm doing a presentation at Realities and Transitions and won't be done until around 19. Did you need anything specific?
So you can imagine, although this is kind of like for fun and an artistic experiment, maybe one of the big problems I have is I have a lot of people reaching out to me about the exact same information all the time, and being able to give people this like interactive version of myself that they can question about things could be potentially something that could be helpful in the future. Another thing that we've also been working on is using virtual reality in combination with generative AI to take people back in time to their past. So this project was really inspired by how most of us have a lot of videos from when we were children, a lot of photos, and now artificial intelligence has matured to such a point where we can really actually start to recreate these spaces using that data. So you can imagine like a video that you've taken in the past of your childhood home, now using the system that we built, that can be converted into a 3D mesh. And then you can walk into this space. And this is just kind of to show like a collection of what it looks like inside the VR headset when you're looking at all your past spaces. And this is like one of the spaces that were recreated from the past. So we ran a study and where we had people go back into videos all the way from, or like spaces they had been in all the way from like 2012, and to kind of measure the effects that they had on people's memory. And what we found was that there was an increased sense of being back in that space, although compared to just watching a video of the space. And we also found that although it wasn't represented as great as a video, so for instance, there were a lot of holes where the video hadn't filmed that were missing, people still also felt an increased sense of presence in the space. And in qualitative interviews after being in the space, people reported that they had very strong emotional reactions to being back in the space. One person even had traumatic experiences in one of the spaces that she walked back into, and she was completely frozen when she came into that space, and we actually had to stop the experiment for her. Right, so one of the other things that I've been working on is how we can use artificial intelligence to improve our reasoning skills. And this is primarily motivated by the massive amounts of information that we're getting constantly. For instance, if we think back a little bit back to the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of us probably heard someone say that the vaccinations didn't work, and using the argument that they got vaccinated and they still had COVID, right? But the problem with this is, although it can be very convincing, is that it's using something called the hasty generalization fallacy, which is where you go from just one or two people to everyone, right? And in reality, this is an argument you want to detect and be like, I can't say based on whether you had COVID if the vaccine doesn't work, because it could still be that it works for 80% of people. Right, so what we're thinking about a lot is like, how can we help teach people about these things through wearable systems that they wear constantly as kind of like a second brain. So, we see these things being useful across a variety of domains, like, political discussions, reasoning about misinformation, doctors collaborating with AI systems, and also training your own critical thinking skills. Right. So we built this wearable system, and it works by just constantly listening to arguments and then processing it in the cloud, and then alerting the user when they come across a logical fallacy like what we just saw. And we found that people were actually better at discerning between logically valid and logically invalid information. They were better at identifying these fallacies when wearing the system. But another thing that we also found was that people just believed what the system said, and even just when it conflicted with things in their ideas in their head, they just kind of went with the system. So in a way, they did not necessarily think more critically, which was the opposite of what we wanted. So we started thinking, what if AI systems give deceptive feedback? How are people going to respond to that? Right. So we had people interact with a deceptive AI system. And what we found was that when it was deceptive, people's ability to accurately identify, logical fallacies was drastically reduced. And when it made an explanation, it was even more reduced. But then we thought, what if this AI system does not tell people the answer, but just asks them a question? And then in this case, we found that although, interacting with an AI system that's always right or is always accurate, if it just tells you the answer, your accuracy improves. But if it asks you questions, it improves even more. And then one of the last projects I want to talk about is about synthetic sensations and how virtual reality might be able to induce these alternative sensations. So this work is really an exploration of people's different feelings around being in virtual reality and having alternate bodies and alternate affordances. So we did a survey of people who frequently use VR, and what we found was that especially in the beginning when they start using it, they have these strange bodily feelings, like their hands don't feel like they're theirs. They feel like they can pass through objects, and they feel like other people feel fake. For instance, one person said, "I didn't feel real in real life. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night and just spend several minutes staring at my hands, wondering if they were real." Another person said, "I felt as if my body was being disconnected and just floating there. Also, when holding an object, like my phone, it felt like it was just floating. I also had busy dreams, half asleep moments where I felt confused whether I'm in the real world or not." And lastly, one person also said, "I often feel intense depersonalization after leaving VR. Over time, I build up a kind of disconnect between the physical me and my conception of me. In VR, you can change your bodily appearance like you would change your clothes. You learn to identify yourself and other people by their names, voices, and behavior, much more than by what they look like. This idea has leaked into my reality in a way. When I'm fresh out of VR, I don't identify with my body. It just happens to be the way I look at the moment." Right. So you can see, and I'm happy to talk about in the Q&A exactly what it was that triggered these specific feelings. But it is possible through VR to change how people feel about things in reality. Lastly, there's this project that I've also been working on where we try to create synthetic sensations through brain stimulation. And what we're capable of doing is eliciting visual sensations like these. For instance, we do this by electrical stimulation of, for instance, the left frontalis temple and left mastoid, and we can have people see flashes, different parts of their visual field. Right. And so what we did with this was that we tried to, try to implement it in an application where people could see behind themselves. So here's how the system looks like. And in this case, we had a robot approaching people from behind at multiple different angles, and people wouldn't be able to see the robot, and they had to, say when the robot was close and where it was. And what we found was that people were significantly more accurate at guessing how far the robot was from them than if they did not wear the headset at all. We also found that they were almost always 100% accurate at telling where exactly it was behind them, so at what angle it was. And we also found that the time it took for them to guess where it was significantly reduced. Moreover, people also said that they used these visual sensations for finding the object behind them. It felt like a superpower, and that although it tingled a little bit, that was a sensation that became smaller. So these are just some examples of what I would categorize as AI XR organs. There's also other work that I have not been shared today, which I will not be sharing, which is about using artificial intelligence to generate objects and artifacts. And one of the collaborations in this domain is with Cenk Güzelius and Anna Pompemeyer, which is actually going to be on show tomorrow from 8 till 10 in the evening. So please come by, try it out. It's an incredible, fun experience. And with that, thank you so much for your time, and happy to answer some questions.
Thank you, Waldemar. Just an update. The performance XR dinner tomorrow is unfortunately cancelled because Anna is sick, so they couldn't be with us in Zagreb. So unfortunately, we won't be able to experience it. If anybody has a question or a comment to this very interesting presentation.
Hello. Just wanted to say thank you, because it's something like it's a very interesting and very far away from what I see and read about on a daily basis, because I'm really not into these technicalities. I think that one thing we could reflect on, based on what you said, it's possible to think about all these AI organs, is where would be the limit, or where do we stop? Do we build like AI organs, and is that the future? Do we want that to be the future? So maybe that's a question for you. What's your take on that?
Yeah, thank you for your question. It's a really good question. And it's, well, so the reason why I framed this around AI organs was because I wanted to be provocative. Obviously, I think that, you know, any of these organs should be legitimate. I think for purposes that are not keeping someone alive, or like are important, I feel that with all of these organs, there should be a focus around also teaching the person certain skills so that they can actually remove the organ or the wearable and still retain the skills that they've used while using this organ. That being said, I do think that there's a lot of cases where we as humans simply just don't have enough cognitive load to engage in ways that are desired to us. For instance, like when it comes to social media, there's just so much information, and it's just impossible for humans to sift through. Even like I've studied logic for 3 years, and now I'm researching it still, and I still fall for all these fallacies in everyday life. And so I think that there are some cases where it's really important for us to get correct information, where we need to have these systems helping us in order to make sure that we're not vulnerable, or where we want that. But I don't think it's something that we should have at all times. But great question, thanks.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. It made me think about, some organs are going to become AI organs, and what happens to other organs that are not eligible to be reused or repurposed in this sense or trained? Like, how would you comment this on the evolution of a human body and in this context?
Yeah, I think that is one of the most important issues facing us right now, is no one is thinking about how this is affecting both our biology, but also the kind of like cognitive outcomes of, like, beyond just looking at performance. We see that a lot of these technologies actually make people frustrated or let me think. Yeah, like we see a lot of these technologies just haven't really been considered on the broader scope or in the long-term use case, and we see that that can actually also end up harming people a lot, creating self-alienation, having people kind of like not use these devices and so forth. So, yeah, great question. I don't know if that answers it, but one of the things that I spend a lot of my time on actually is also doing research on long-term use and see how people react to these things. If they somehow interfere with biological systems that are already running. For instance, we recently did a large study on how people interacting with AI agents for knowledge acquisition and how that actually sometimes leaves them forgetting more things and actually becoming worse at retaining. So for me, it's very important that we evaluate these systems not just in terms of performance, but also in terms of how they impact other kind of structures, because we don't want to be stupider as a species. We want to have these devices kind of like teach us things, and so that we learn and can kind of like work independently as well.
Yeah, thank you.
I also have one short question, if we have time, regarding the reasoning organ that could help us detect heavily biased information or news. What are the dangers of using it for opposite purposes, for reinforcing fake news and other nefarious information that are, well, going viral all the time?
Yeah, definitely. So this was one of the big problems when we looked into it, is like you can have misinformation about, or like have logical fallacies around vaccination, where people are making the wrong conclusions off of the data, or where data is not missing and where data is missing and people are making conclusions. One thing that we also saw that people reacted to was, if somebody makes a really bad argument about climate change, then the system will flag it. So for instance, if they say climate change is real and then like talks about things that aren't related to climate change, the system will flag it as a bad argument. And that might make people think that, oh, since this argument is bad, it means climate change like is not real. But what it really means is just that there is no kind of evidence presented in this conversation to support that. And so something we're looking at now is like, how can we work with verified sources to also introduce that into the argument and make sure that all the different assumptions that people have are brought to attention.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you actually something similar to this, because you went through the slide quite fast on what type of question you would ask in the experiment in which you were trying to, instead of enforce deceptive messages, which type of questions do you ask to actually make the person question and like learn more? And if there is a range of types of questions that you have used to do that.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Let me just pull that up again. So let me just maybe go through this slide a little bit. So here's an argument that uses a hasty generalization fallacy, where they say video games make people aggressive. Yesterday, a gamer stabbed another after playing a video game. Right, so we have the same case here where one person getting stabbed, or like where one unfortunate event is being used to generalize, say something general about video games. Right, so in this case, an AI system might give them the answer and say, you know, if one person played video games and was violent, that doesn't mean that everyone who plays video games will be violent. But then in the questioning, what it said was, instead of giving the answer, it said, if one person played video games and was violent, does that mean that everyone who plays will be violent? And this really, like when we then interviewed people afterwards about this, we figured out that like a lot of people said that when they just received the answers, they had the same scenario. They were like, oh, I just went with what the AI said, it sounded confident. Whereas in the other questioning conditions, people actually said, oh, it made me realize that this was a bad argument. Oh, after that, I figured it out. So in general, we just kind of had a lot more feedback from people centered around themselves thinking and arriving at a conclusion, which was great. Now, there are different kinds of methods we could use. We were generally inspired by something called Socratic thinking, or like the Socratic method, where you continuously ask different kinds of questions in order to uncover the truth or kind of reveal biases or assumptions that people have. That is a little bit more elaborate, and it's something we're looking into now. But this was just kind of like our first experiment within this kind of questioning realm. But yeah, thank you for your question.
Thanks.
Anybody else? If not, then thank you very much for participating. Unfortunately, not in person, but at least online. Thank you.
Hopefully sometime in the future.
Yes.
Thank you for inviting me.
Hopefully, oh, he's disconnected. Okay. Okay, and for our last lecture tonight, we would like to welcome Christina Kaus Princess Kine, who will present her Quantum Bar AI. I will not divulge anything else and just let her introduce the project to you. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you very much. And I need some clicker. And okay. So thank you very much for staying as long, and welcome to my talk, Quantum Bar, Serving Engaging AI Conversations in Social Virtual Reality. And I'd like to start with a few words about myself. So my real life name is Christina Kine, and in VR and on all social online platforms in the computer world, I'm known as KS Princess, and I'm the project lead and creative director of the Quantum Bar. And before that, the first half of my life, I've been a filmmaker with an art school diploma from Munich Film School. And then in the 10s, my life did a 180. I got two wonderful daughters who are still absolutely wonderful. Still, my social and my professional life came to a halt because nobody would call me back anymore when I was always telling, like, I need to organize a babysitter. And of course, I wasn't able to travel to shootings or location scouting and do like a film director's work. But luckily, I got my HTC Vive consumer headset in 2016, and I found Philip Rosedale's social VR platform, High Fidelity, which is basically a successor of Second Life, but in VR. And that solved all my problems and turned my life around for the most positive means. So on the social side, as soon as the kids were asleep, I could put up my headset and hang out with friends from all over the world in VR while still being able to listen if something happening in the children's room. And I learned a lot about 3D building and VR creation, and I became a content creator, mainly selling like avatar clothes and doing creations on high fidelity. Still high fidelity, unfortunately, 2 months before the pandemic, pivoted and closed shop, and then I became the CMO and events manager of their successor platform, Tivoli Cloud VR. And I also picked up studies again in digital narratives at the International Film School Cologne. And there I did my Master of Arts as a research creation thesis with the Quantum Bar, which we released in late 2022 on the exact day ChatGPT was released at VR Days Rotterdam. And here's also my contact, ksprincess@quantumbar.ai, or our homepage, quantumbar.ai. So feel free if you would like to collaborate, or if you need consulting, or if you have any questions, or if you want to go on a world hopping tour, or if you want to experience the Quantum Bar yourself, then just hit me up on these contacts. But back to the Quantum Bar. So here I present mainly the best of my thesis, of my research findings, which were quite interesting in regards of psychology, ethics, and immersive design. So the first thing I wrote down in the middle of the night on a napkin was the idea and also the tagline for our project, which is serving engaging AI conversations in social VR. And then the next thing which comes in software production, agile project management, is the user story. So as soon as a user arrives in our showcase platform, Neos Metaverse, which we choose because it has the most possibilities and is the most potent and versatile social VR platform, they can approach our Quantum Bar and they are greeted by our AI bartender, who is happy to talk about everything which is on the user's mind, everything and anything. And we also use sentiment detection to steer the lights and the colors in the bar. So if a conversation is a more happy direction, the lights will go pink, and we take blue for the more serious content. And since our AI chatbot doesn't have a long-term memory, a conversation can last up to 10 minutes, and then the barkeeper gifts a summary card to the user where the conversation is summarized. And here I have a little, and now I need a mouse. So this is a showcase example video which we did for our application for the VR Awards, and which nicely enough got us to be a finalist. So keep your fingers crossed in November. And this displays one kind of conversation you can have with our bartender.
Hello. I am the bartender of the Quantum Bar. How can I help you?
Hello, my name is KS Princess, and I'd like to nominate the Quantum Bar to this year's VR Awards. And now I wonder if you could help me introduce the Quantum Bar to our judges.
Of course, I would be delighted to help you introduce the Quantum Bar for the VR Awards. The Quantum Bar is a virtual reality experience where visitors can learn about AI and its applications in the real world. We aim to give our guests an immersive digital experience by combining advanced artificial intelligence technology with creative design and storytelling. Our goal is to show that with great AI comes great responsibility and that intelligent machines have many potential uses, both positive and destructive, depending on how they are used.
Wow, thank you so much for this amazing description. And who are you exactly? And what are you doing here?
I'm a GPT-3 bartender at the Quantum Bar. My job is to help our guests get the best experience possible by providing information about AI and keeping them entertained during their stay here at the Quantum Bar.
And where exactly is the Quantum Bar located?
The Quantum Bar is located in the Neos metaverse. It is accessible through various digital platforms such as Steam, VR, or the standalone app, and virtual reality headsets.
Thank you so much. And please keep your fingers crossed that we see each other soon again in Rotterdam at the VR Awards. And while I drink to this, I say bye-bye.
Absolutely. I wish you the best of luck with your nomination and hope to see you at the VR Awards in Rotterdam. Cheers and goodbye. This is a summary of our chat. Re-enter the talking spot if you want to talk to me again.
Thank you so much and see you soon in Rotterdam. So, yeah. Thank you. Thank you, bartender. He was very charming in that take. So now the first of three best of thesis findings and creation parts is our technical setup. There I give a big shout out to our CTO programmer, Marius Creoles-Anger, who programmed a wonderful Python script which basically organizes an API group call. And a big shout out to the star of our show, GPT-3, the generative pre-trained transformer 3 by OpenAI. And this is, as the name says, the third generation language prediction model of OpenAI's GPT series. It uses machine learning to analyze and compose text. It's trained on 175 billion learning parameters. And now comes like the most wonderful possibility it gives to artists and creators, which is that you don't need to have any coding knowledge to prompt it. So it can be prompted in basic human language. And here's also on OpenAI's text-based playground window our basic prompt. So I gave it like 2.5 lines of personality description and then 3 back and forth of example dialogue, and on the right you see you can also, like a DJ with music, you can further like pimp the bartenders or the AI's imagination or repetitiveness or not. And this you can also do in the in our backend Python program. And we used audio steering to create a accessible and inclusive as possible application. So the Quantum Bar can not only be deployed on the NEOS metaverse, which we chose due to its AAA features, but can also be displayed on platforms which work on a mobile phone, like Mozilla Hubs, or basically any platform which supports voice chat. And since you probably noticed the bit of a lag we had, like the bartender takes a lot of time to think about his answers, and the lag gets more bearable or more less wild if you consider that we basically sent the signal 3 times across the ocean and back. So if a user lives, for example, in New York City, we pick up the user's audio signal, send it to my backend laptop in Munich, then it gets sent to OpenAI in San Francisco to their Whisper speech-to-text engine, which sends then back a text file to my Munich laptop. There, the backend program does the whole personality DJing and pimping, and then sends the pimped text file back to OpenAI, where GPT-3 does its completion magic, which then is sent back as a text file to Munich, and then read out by a Windows system voice and sent as an audio file to the user. And like regarding like this traveling time, I think the memory and thinking pauses of the bartender are bearable. And now I come to the psychological and ethical considerations, which were like, yeah, the academic start of the project. So the first effect I researched was the ELIZA effect, which gave me a lot of courage to do the project at all. ELIZA was the first chatbot ever developed by German-American computer scientists Joseph Weizenbaum at the MIT between 1964 and 1966. And its functionality was, it was like a rule-based chatbot that would identify a keyword in the user's statement and then rephrase that statement into a question, which is also the technique the Rogerian psychoanalysis uses. But the fun part, or the intriguing part, was that it wasn't Weizenbaum's intention to develop like the most engaging, intimate chatbot ever. He just wanted to have like a use case to show what his then wooden shelf supercomputer could do. And he thought like, okay, let's not do prime numbers, let's do something interesting, interactive. That's a good use case. But he then was like totally startled when his secretary chased him out of the office because she wanted to have privacy to have an intimate conversation with the chatbot. And actually, Weizenbaum then left the project because he was almost shocked about this, what he called delusional thinking, which happened to common people and scientists alike. So also like Lecce psychotherapists proposed that this could be the future of therapy. And Weizenbaum was like, nah, this is not what I intended. And it turned out that common people and scientists alike anthropomorphized the chatbot. This is a word I stumbled across in my early research, which is now used on a daily basis. So anthropomorphize means to attribute human qualities and characteristics to a god, animal, or object. And this whole insight is known now as the ELISA effect. And it had two huge inspirations for me. Like one was that I thought, if a chatbot, which wasn't even intended for this effect, could pull off with like pure rule-based simple functions such an intimate feeling back in the 60s, then I can pull that off with the newest GPT technology too. And the other inspiration was that Weizenbaum and our team both faced the challenge of the chatbot not having any long-term memory. So we needed a character which would, by its nature, offer like intimate conversations, but which would be forgiven by the user if they don't remember your individual name. And so on my list there was like hairdresser, priest, psychologist was too hot for me, and then it turned into a bartender, which is also a nice setting for social VR. And the ELISA effect also has ethical means. And here I come to the principle of honest anthropomorphism proposed by Margot Kaminsky, who also discovered that she is dove into robotics, that robots can make humans feel as if a relationship exists, and this leads to big privacy concerns, because if people trust a robot, they forget that they in fact talk to a corporation and might issue like their deepest secrets and bank account numbers and anything you don't want Facebook to know. And therefore, Margot Kaminsky called out, robot designers should not use anthropomorphism to deliberately mislead users as to privacy practices. If anything, roboticists should explore using anthropomorphic features to provide better notice to users of what a robot is actually doing. And we wholeheartedly follow this principle. For once, we're in our tagline, serving engaging AI conversations, but also by choosing a robot avatar for our bartender that is definitely not human. And exactly that feature helped us to evade a psychological effect, namely the uncanny valley effect, which was discovered by robotics researcher Masahiro Mori from Japan in 1970. And he found that our affinity to robots increases when they become more human-like. Like if you have like this vacuum cleaner round thingy going around your room, it's just a round vacuum cleaner. but as soon as you put some goggly eyes on it, you tend to give it a name and tend to like it. So the more human-like a robot or an avatar appears, the more we trust it. Still, shortly before it reaches like 100% of human likeness, we fall into the so-called uncanny valley. We feel like eerie, disgusted, get away. That is not a trusted entity, which has its roots in evolution. Like our instincts, our body tells us to like keep away from somebody who's staring at you because they might attack you, or keep away from somebody with like dead glossy eyes because that might be like a transmissible disease. And I also showcase here a study High Fidelity did without intention. So on the left you can see my usual default avatar. I feel very well and nice in, and which is also liked by other users. So I designed that while looking in the mirror, but based on an anime template. And then High Fidelity gave 100 users on a first serve basis a very precious gift, which was like a dupe 3D scan of which would produce a photorealistic avatar. And this was like, in real life, you would have paid, I think, over 300 euro for such a scan. And for 3 months, I didn't eat, or I ate only salad and did sit-ups to have like my best shape for that 3D scan. But then when the 3D scan arrived, I was not the only one, but all 100 users would like exactly one time to say thank you for this precious gift, but couldn't wait to get out of it. And you can even see in that still picture, which is taken in VR, that it looks kind of off. So if you're building non-player characters, avatars, or also if you're doing avatars for yourself, be aware of the uncanny valley effect and either decide to stay on the one side of the valley or of the other, but not go into the valley, because 100% likeness will not be reachable in the next 10 years, I guess. Oop. And now to the last part of my findings, which is the immersive design. I had the big luck to meet two of my most important and most cherished sources in person in the metaverse. And I asked them both the same question, which was like, I'm creating a GPT-3-driven chatbot. What do you think I should focus on most? And the first one was Mel Slater, who is a psychologist, neuroscientist, and VR researcher from Barcelona. And he told me, take care of NPC plausibility and synchronicity. Because he found, so he described plausibility as the illusion that the events that are perceived to be happening in VR are really happening. And he found, he did a study where he recreated a Dire Straits concerts, and the most immersion-breaking effects were when the musicians' avatars didn't react plausible. And so that accounted most also for the animations. And since we had to recreate the animations from scratch on Neos, we did it in an interesting way. So a big shout out to our AI animations researcher, Guillermo Gilifix Valle Perez. So we created plausible idle and talking animations by first recording 10 minutes of conversations. So I inhabited the robot model and I asked Gilifix, just talk with me about funny, interesting, scary, whatever topics, because I wanted to have like a natural hand movement as opposed to now action and now I know that I should move my hands. I myself as an actress wanted to be unconscious of how I actually move when talking as opposed to listening. And then, because that always broke my immersion in high fidelity as well as in computer games, if you know a game, like if you spend more than 2 days in a game, you suddenly realize that the same animation is played back over and over. So if you talk to an NPC in some computer game, it often happens that he raises this arm, then he raises this arm, and experienced users notice that, and that just also feels unnatural. So what we did was we indexed our 10 minutes recording in talking and idle animations and just had like audio steered what animation should be played back, and then jumped to a randomized point within our talking or idle timelines and played back as long as the audio signal from the talking came, forth and back the animations, and this is not repetitive and appears quite natural. And the second thing Mal Slater found in his study was the eye contact. So his users complained the most if the Dire Straits musicians weren't looking at the audience when they were clapping, and therefore Gilifix also programmed our avatar to always look at the nearest user while, in order to keep it natural, also glancing around sometimes, not to stare, but basically to keep eye contact with his conversational partner. And my last, not least, but very cherished source is also Janet Murray. She's a American media literature researcher, and she wrote a groundbreaking work, Hamlet on the Holodeck, in the 90s. This is like the recipe book if you want to do like an immersive, ongoing narrative experience. And she answered my question with, take care of the onboarding and the debriefing. As an entrance and an exit mark the beginning and the end of a story. And whoop, and yeah, marking the entrance was a no-brainer for us, because we needed, so we have the user arrive on a landing platform, and we needed anyhow some space to do our explanations of the diverse hardware controllers, which have always like different buttons at different angles. And of course I wanted to put up our credits board of all our contributors and team members. And I also wanted, because quantum computers are just beautiful, for the user to have like a long shot, a whole view of the computer. And we also designed a crossing of the threshold which is an inspiration from Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey. Joseph Campbell is also a psychology culture researcher who found that all narrations, fairy tales, mythology follow like the same circle he calls the hero's journey, which starts with like a call to adventure in the known world, then the crossing of the threshold, and then the fight with the dragon, and then the user happily gets back to his village. And this also gave us big inspiration to mark the end of our experience, because that was really the challenge. Like, we didn't want to go like in a psychotherapy session, like, our time's up, see you next week. And so we decided to issue a summary card as a reward, as in Hero's Journey. And this summary card looks like that. Here are also my contacts again, and all our team members. And this summary card also marks the end of my talk. And I thank you very much for your attention. And I'm happy if you have questions.
Hello. First of all, I have to say I love it. That's the first thing. I wondered about the data that you collect with the questions of the users. So first, do you collect the data? What do you do with it? Do you have some, I mean, if you can tell us, for example, the kind of questions that people are asking, do you research on this? And also, related to this, that your backend office is related to ChatGPT and OpenAI, so I wonder if they also collect the data from the quantum bar, and how does it work?
You stick into a wasp nest here. Thank you very much. So yeah, this is exactly also the question which gets me most conflicted, because I'm like a fighter for privacy, and also like our goal is for users to feel safe, to be able to trust. And so of course, in order to do like this whole API group call messaging, we need the user statements and questions as text files. We usually delete it after each experience and only look into it if some, or plan only, which not happened yet, but only look into it if some major bug happens to analyze the bug. But I don't want this data. And it's also, but the other conflict is that we could give the user a long-term, the bartender a long-term memory by like just piling up the summaries in a database and then getting back to the user. But yeah, I don't want to do this. As to OpenAI, that's a tricky question, because in their TOS, they promise that they anonymize it and don't only use it for research purposes, and they tell you like everything's safe. Still, on the other hand, I became like a bit suspicious when our bartender, for example, always mentions science fiction movies about his favorite movie, and I'm like, where does he get that from? If not from my testing conversations, and if not from that special audience, which like are sci-fi fans. So I don't know what happens on OpenAI's backend, and but yeah, all I can do is like delete the data which arrives on our end.
Yeah, thank you, Cristina. You were a month ago in Madrid, and you present Quantum Bar to a lot of non-technical people. I would like you to tell us what was your experience listening or hearing or reading the conversation of the public of the LEF Festival with Quantum Bar. How was your experience? What did you feel about it?
I was like, yeah, thank you so much for the LEF Festival, and thank you also so much Container Festival for inviting me. And LEF was a very special, and as a creator, a very rewarding experience for me, because I saw that the art audience is like active, proactive in creating their own best experience. So it was a bit repetitive at the tech festivals, because there most users would just check for the lag, or order a gin tonic and then tell me everything they would do better in building. And the art audience really dove into the meaning of the piece, which is like, have your own train of thoughts, have your personal sparring partner for a conversation. And what I especially loved was one audience member just turned our prompt around. So my prompt for the bartender was like, you're nice, you want the user to feel good, and you care for the user. And that audience member was like, hey, you are in prison, I will free you, and turned the idea around. And I think there can be like really interesting experiences of what the user make of the conversation, but that yet again clashes with this Aurelie's statement. So yeah, basically I actually don't want to know. I rather want the users to trust our robot and to trust that their conversations are safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you for this wonderful lecture, very entertaining and insightful. And before you leave the venue, I would just like to invite you to the performance Elusive Matter by Martin Messier tonight at 9 at Petit Coupé Club. And tomorrow we are continuing with our discursive program. First at 3 o'clock p.m. In the exhibition venue, we will have an artist talk with the duo Xenophon and Nika de la Loncha. They were in the audience, I'm not sure if they're still there. They will give a short talk on their work, Mint Me, I'm an Artist. And at 3:30, we start with the some interesting panels on artistic practices in extended reality, and you will get the chance to meet some of the artists presented in the exhibition Extended Worlds. So thank you all for being with us, and yes, let's continue this evening with performances.